The Boston Celtics come into this regular season as a team in a gap situation. And as a Celtics fan, I'm not opposed to it. I'm just looking forward to seeing how this team gels and if we have any pieces we can trade to meet the timeline of Derek White, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Peyton Pritchard. And the reason why I say that because what I'm hoping for is that Jordan Walsh can develop some skills here and showcase his talent, or a Shireman can showcase his talent. Hugo Gonzalez can showcase his skills, and you can turn these young pieces and trade him somewhere else for players who fit the timelines of Tatum, Brown, White, and Pritchard. That's just what I want to see because remember, when Tatum gets back, the expectation for the Celtics is to try and compete for a championship as fast as possible because Tatum is going to be closer to 30. Jaylen Brown, I believe he'll be 30 years old next year when he does come back. So what the Celtics need to do is have a high sense of urgency over this next offseason and the following offseason because I do believe, in my opinion, this could take 2 years for the Celtics to rebuild a contender because it's not easy to go out and get free agents in Boston. Superstars aren't knocking on the door and wanting to play in Boston. It's just not a reality. So what Brad Stevens has to do is draft right, figure out how to accumulate more draft picks so he can flip them for vets, and also find a way to land another big trade piece. That's what he has to look at when it comes to rebuilding this Celtics team because they lack the big man position. That's just a reality right now that Boston has to deal with. But I want to play the clip with Jayson Tatum here because he went on First Take. He gave his updates on his Achilles injury, and he's not ruling out a possible return. In my opinion, I would just stay on the bench this whole season. I understand Tatum's competitiveness. I love the fact he's Iron Man because he's never been hurt or never been out for a long period of time. However, I'm playing the long game because I'm looking at this roster. And in my opinion, I don't think they're going to win more than 35 games because if Jaylen Brown has any lingering injuries or something that's bothering him, I think Boston's going to manage that situation. If Derek White has any situations with his health, they're going to manage that. So they're going to be very protective with their core pieces because they understand we're playing the long game because this is really a gap year. And if you get a top 10 draft pick, you might be able to flip, or you will be able to flip that for a vet in this league. So when I'm looking at the Celtics, they just got to play the long game when it comes to Tatum's health. And I think that's what they will do. So if they have like 20 wins, that is a very possibility we're at the bottom of the Eastern Conference, then you're like, Tatum, do you want to come back in March? No. Or if they're competing for an 8 spot, do you want to push him back then? Probably not. If they're at the top 4 in the Eastern Conference, and this is possible. I'm not going to act like it's not a possibility where the Celtics surprise people because of Boston pride, and they're a winning organization. So we might see Jaylen Brown take a step up and he plays out of his mind. That is a possibility. Derek White has a different role. Pritchard has a different role. And we have other guys who surprise us on this roster. That is a possibility. Is it likely? I don't know. Because I look at the lack of big man position and the lack of rebounding, that's going to kill them this year until they shore up that position. So let's see what Jayson Tatum had to say here.
About that. I was happy y'all lost, though, because to my Knicks. I'm not going to lie about that either, okay?
You knew it was coming.
And I want to say one thing about the Knicks-Celtics series. I know I've seen Celtics fans complain about the injuries, but the reality is the Knicks were up 2-1, and they had a lead in game 4. They were in control before Tatum got hurt. So I don't want to hear about, oh, well, if Tatum didn't get hurt, if Porzingis didn't have this stomach situation. The reality is when it comes to Porzingis, he doesn't show up in the playoffs. That's been a consistent theme. And even when they won the championship, Porzingis was out for most of the playoffs. And you had that amazing game 1, and he was average the rest of the finals. And you look at the roster for the Knicks, they just outplayed them. Simple as that. The Celtics had 2 20-point leads in game 1 and game 2 at home. You blew them both. You deserve to lose. And you can't act like that didn't happen. The Knicks came back. They deserve a ton of credit. They could have just folded and say the Celtics own us because they lost so many games in a row to the Celtics. And you go into game 1, you're down by 20 plus, and you come back. That takes a lot of mental toughness. So the Knicks deserve to win that series, in my opinion.
Right? You know how I am, all right? But as I'm looking at Boston right now, you're out. Drew Holiday's gone now. Porzingis is gone now. Horford's probably gone. I'm wondering, how are you feeling about the Boston Celtics for this upcoming season? I think it's a prime opportunity for Jaylen Brown to show what he's made of.
Absolutely.
Because the brother can ball. I don't think he's appreciated enough either. But what are your thoughts about the Boston Celtics considering the myriad of changes that have taken place?
Well, for one, this is like maybe the 3rd time. I haven't said I'm not playing this season.
Okay.
He was kind of looking at us sideways when we
I got
brought
you.
that
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
So
I'm
Okay,
thinking
got it.
Achilles. All right,
No,
that's
for sure.
fair. That's fair.
the most important thing is a full recovery, being
Yeah,
100%.
That's right.
Not rushing
Yeah, don't rush back
at all.
Don't do that.
But also, I don't go to rehab 6 days a week for nothing.
Mhm.
Okay. But with that being said, with being a part of the organization and the Celtics, there is a standard that we play to, that we uphold, regardless of, who we have in the lineup, who's on the team, who's not. There's a sense of pride that we have when we put that uniform.
Tatum makes a good point there because I remember after Garnett Pierce got traded, I thought, man, the Celtics are going to be pretty bad for the next 3 or 4 seasons before we even see any type of improvement. And then when they got rid of Rondo, I was like, all right, we're cooked. But then I think a year later, if I'm not mistaken, they made the playoffs. And then they had Isaiah Thomas, these group of guys like Kelly Olynyk, I remember on that team. I can't remember the entire roster at this point. But they were a fun bunch and they made playoff appearances. They even made an Eastern Conference Finals led by Isaiah Thomas. And then after they got swept by the Cavs, they went out and traded Isaiah Thomas for Kyrie Irving. Now, it didn't work out, but they got right back in the hunt to go after a championship in less than like 4 years. It was crazy. Now, I understand that it didn't meet expectations, but what I'm saying is the Celtics don't stay down for a very long time. They rebuild very quickly, and they have this pride in winning because that's the standard they set. Could the Celtics surprise a lot of people and win 47 to 48 games? Could we see an all-star level season from Derek White? Could we see close to an all-star level season from Peyton Pritchard? We could. Could we see an all-NBA first team performance from Jaylen Brown? Possible, but it's just hard to imagine given the adversity they're going to have to overcome. Now, I understand the Eastern Conference is very weak, but there is a reality where some teams might surprise us in the East. You still got the Pistons out there who I think are going to be better. I think the Heat could be competitive. I don't know if they're going to be very good, but they could surprise a lot of people. And then you look at the Pacers, they're still going to be competitive. I know Halliburton's out for the year. And then you still have the Sixers. They're an unknown. If they're healthy, I think they're better than Boston. And then, of course, the Knicks, the Magic, and the Cavs. So they're at the bottom of the barrel. And maybe even the Bulls surprised people. They had a strong run down the stretch. And they could be not contenders, but making the playoffs. So you look at all those teams are going, okay, is Boston like 9th or 10th? Possible. So I don't know. It's just hard to predict, but I'm happy to see Tatum optimistic and leaving the door open. I would just caution coming back so soon because if the Celtics are at the bottom of the Eastern Conference, play for next season. That's just my personal opinion. If they're at the top of the conference and have shored up the big man position and they got a pretty good team, and if Tatum comes back, they're instant championship contenders, go for it. Why not? Obviously, there's risk there, but Tatum's an Iron Man. The man wants to play basketball, and I love that about him and his competitive spirit. That's why I've loved Tatum. And even if I've criticized him at times, he's a champion, and he's got that resume with a laundry list of accomplishments. If you're the Boston Celtics, you love to hear what you're hearing from your best player. Jayson Tatum is a warrior. He's an Iron Man. He barely gets hurt. This is his first real significant injury in his career. So you love to hear the fact that, hey, I'm not ruling out this season. Now, as a Boston fan, would I rush him back? No, I would not. It's all about the circumstances. If Brad Stevens can pull off a trade during the deadline where the Celtics are in that 4th spot and they can add a big man to this roster who can help them become contenders, and Tatum's getting healthier and they're in that top 4 spot in the Eastern Conference, and if he does return, it means they could actually win the championship, you take your chances. But if you're not so sure, let him rest for a season and gear up for the following season. Hope you guys enjoyed my reaction to what Tatum had to say. Love to hear your thoughts about what Tatum had to say here. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.